Welcome to the Open Talent Report, the award-winning podcast where we dive deep into the emerging trends in global employment, the future of work, the talent crisis, the demographic deficit, and the new world of work with our expert host, Connor Heaney. Connor is the managing director at CXC EMEA, a company that takes the hassle out of finding, compliantly engaging, and paying contractors anywhere in the world. In this podcast, Connor brings you captivating conversations with top CEOs, visionary founders, and industry experts. Together, they shed light on all things open talent and the evolving nature of work itself. So grab your headphones and join us on this exhilarating journey.
Hello and welcome to this week's show where I am delighted, and I do mean delighted, to welcome to the show Åsa Landqvist, who is CXC Global's VP for the Nordics region. Åsa, a very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And of course, a very warm welcome to CXC. I think the day we're recording, you've just been with our business 2 months, so hopefully you're enjoying it.
Yeah. I do enjoy it very much. It's great to be part of the team and being part of driving the business forward is really great.
Great. Well, Åsa, we're delighted you're in our business, but we're delighted you're on the show. And Åsa, you've got a really interesting career history, and we're going to talk briefly about you today, if that's okay. Åsa, I know not everyone's comfortable about that, but listen, you're on. What the hell?
We give it a try. Yes.
All right, let's go. Well, Åsa, so just for the benefit of our audience, Åsa, would you mind just giving me and our audience some snippets on your career history? What was your journey, and how did you become the VP at CXC for the Nordics?
Well, I've done a few different things during my during my journey. I started off in the sort of advertising communications. That's where it all started. And I was head of agency and part of the sales team and operation and the management team for some years. And then I went off to do some board work, a member of the different boards. And then I actually changed path. Instead of sort of building brands, I switched to actually building a city just outside Stockholm. And I was part of building Södertälje, as it's called, and was charge of the head of trade and industry office, and also making it possible for the science park to establish there, which it still is. So it's really good sort of trademarks. Every time you go by the car, you see the science park. So that's really nice. And then after that, I started my own business, became a sort of a startup and scale-up partner and entrepreneur, which I really enjoyed. A lot of hard work, of course. I had several startups and board work during those years. But I did learn a lot from building companies, international expansions, sales, mostly, of course, because that's what you need in a startup. You need to create growth. And then I was off to being part of sort of the continuing workforce management, more sort of directly within eWork Group for some years. And I was in charge of their sort of market units in both in Gothenburg, but also in the smaller cities, Västerås, Linköping and Sundsvall, which is sort of the northern part of Sweden, and had sort of several teams there in each office, which was really fun, really good, great teamwork, great people. We did a lot of stuff. And then after that, I became part of a global business, sort of competitor to where we're at now, People 2.0. And then I became here, VP of CXC in the Nordics.
Well, fantastic, Åsa. So what a story. So, Åsa, not all our audience know much about CXC. So what are the typical challenges and problems that CXC solves for?
I would say we solve the global payrolling, of course. This is our sort of bread and butter, what we do. Make sure that the continuing workforce of our customers, of our partners, make it more efficient, more compliant, and making sure that we also do direct sourcing, of course. We find the talent that they need, but most importantly, we manage the whole workforce, the continuing workforce, of course.
And Orsa, when you look at the Nordics, I appreciate that it's a big region, right? There's a lot going on, as I understand it, right? And please forgive my ignorance. We got Norway, we got Denmark, we got Finland, right? And it's a wide geographical area with a lot of variation and change. How do you see the talent market there, and how do you see the contingent workforce world there? Is it evolving?
Well, it is evolving, and mostly because of, I would say the Nordics is characteristic by a lot of innovation, high productivity, and also focus on sustainability, of course. And we need the top talent to create those innovation and keeping the pace and making sure that we are part of a global setup, which a lot of Nordic companies already are, of course.
And also, like, if you look at most Western economies, right? So, for example, just UK, Germany, Netherlands. I don't know the Nordics data, so you might have it on hand, but if you don't, it's all good. USA, they're pretty much, despite Europe and USA being in what was considered to be a technical recession, they're in full employment, or at least close to full employment by most reasonable metrics, which is around 5% or less, right? So you've got that problem, right? Now some would say that problem is an opportunity. So you've got that problem. You've then got demographics whereby birth rates are declining, right? We're not simply producing enough people, haven't been on a general basis in Western Europe and Western labour markets probably for the last 40 years. And then you had COVID, of course, which actually took a lot of people out of the workforce. Unfortunately, some unfortunately died, some are long-term injured, some are dealing with the legacy and pain of that, of course. So you've got a much reduced labour force. And then to add into the fire or add into the mix, you've got most governments saying, hey, listen, we don't want any immigrants coming into our country. Our borders are closed, right? And even if the borders are open, it's incredibly difficult to get into those countries, right? Unless you're in the trading bloc like the European Union or whatnot. So you've got that. And then you've got pretty much every medium and large enterprise both firing people, but replacing people at the same time too. So it's a really interesting labour market, Orsa. So I suppose what my question really is, have you any solutions to maybe solve for this talent scarcity or talent availability problem?
Well, that's a good question and a big question. I think we sort of need to look at sort of future work in a different way. I think sort of the traditional career path when you sort of you retire of the peak of your career. I think it's that will already changing. I think you becoming as you are in part of your career. You're shifting industries. You have multiple income. You're being creative with what you have, and I also think that the new generation sort of, and that is being part of the workforce now, is also having a different kind of curiosity and demands of being part of that workforce, which is really interesting and makes us as leaders and companies, we have to sort of rethink of how we do that. And I also think that we need to, what's also changing is how we work, where we work. From 5 days full time, a lot of company goes down to 4 days of work or 6 hours per day. That's also something completely different. And I also think that sort of how we look at skills and skill requirements is a bit different. I think if you look back a few years, it was always all required to have a degree when you sort of apply for a job. now I think we're all looking at sort of a wider talent pool to make sure that we don't miss out on any talent, depending on where they come from or where they have done before they apply for that specific job.
I think that's such a great point, Orsa. Actually, and I know even in our own company that we're changing our job requirements to say, we don't care if you've got a degree, it's about your ability, capability, experience, willingness to learn, self-sufficiency, ability to think laterally. They're much more important in my view than whether you have a degree or not, because my own view on this, Orsa, is that if you think of schools and universities today, I don't even think that we're training our kids for the jobs of today, let alone the jobs of tomorrow. You know, it's really old school how we're educating.
It's quite traditional how we sort of teach in school and university still, and I think it's that we need to have. It goes really fast, and our education need to be part of that change. And so I think it's really important to bring any talent with the right attitude, with the curiosity and being able to adapt, and the company can have sort of internal university instead of external university. So I think that's sort of that triggers me, that creates something new and something different.
Yeah, that's quite. I really love that idea, Orsa, that internal university and that internal skills-based approach to hiring. And I've noted that a lot of large enterprises have brought that into their business, and they're already seeing productivity increases. They're seeing their attrition rates reduce as well, which are two obvious benefits of that approach. So, Orsa, not everyone in our audience is familiar with the Nordics and the regulatory environment there. So one trend I've certainly observed, and I think we've been at the forefront over the last number of years, is the amount of regulatory convergence when it comes to how both temporary agency workers are engaged and managed, the regulatory environment that they're engaged in manage, the licensing environment. But in addition to that, we've seen a lot of convergence around how independent contractors and freelancers are classified or indeed misclassified. And of course, there's been a huge swathe of case law in this area in places like Belgium, UK, Ireland, Spain, France, Germany. The list goes on, right? And typically it's platforms that are getting hit over the head and saying, hey, listen, these people are actually not independent contractors, they're employees. So Orsa, what's it like over in the Nordics? I appreciate there's 4 countries that we're talking about, but I'd love to get your view on the regulatory environment there and what's coming up.
I would say that I think in Norway is the sort of maybe the most regulated, because it sort of is built on that everyone should be permanent employed, and they have sort of built the local legislation around that. In Sweden, we have what we call the Rental Act, which requires that any contractor could only be contracted for 24 months. And after that, they have to be sort of offered a permanent position. And if they are not offered, they have to be sort of compensated through that. But the worker can also, of course, say no to that offer and continue as a freelancer or consultants or independent contractors. And so I think it's interesting, and this is just starting to implement, and we see the change, and we see the regulation, how it's being interpreted, and I think we have much to sort of look at and evaluate for end of this year and upcoming years as well.
And Orsa, do you think those regulations will have an impact on labour market flexibility?
Yes, I of course they will. But I also think that we, as part of the continuing workforce and total talent management, also will find solution and being creative around that to make sure that, because I do believe that the continuing workforce needs to be part of that, of our innovation. We need those experts. We need that talent that wants to be part of the continuing workforce and not being employed. So I think, but it's also important that we look after platform workers, that they have the right legislation and payment structure and benefits, of course. So it's good that we look into those local legislation, but I think it's also important that we make the whole talent pool accessible.
Yeah, I agree. I really share that vision that you've outlined there, Orsa. So, Orsa, one of the things I'd like to look at is something that I'm becoming increasingly preoccupied with as a business leader, but also as someone that cares about society, and that's AI, artificial intelligence, and potentially artificial intelligence impact on jobs, and specifically jobs displacement. So I suppose I'm a bit of a skeptic as to its positive societal impact, right? I'm not anti-technology by any means, right? I'm pro-technology, but I'm also pro-humans and pro-job, right? But I think where a profit motive comes in, it's going to make it really difficult for organizations and companies not to AI and introduce AI into their business. So what's your take on this, Orsa?
Well, first of all, I do think it's really interesting. I think it's something that's been some sort of expected to be part of the tech solution that we have. I think it will create sort of workforce opportunity and not sort of diminish them. And I think we all need to sort of be updated on how to use AI in our roles and in our companies. And because if we don't, I think we will be replaced with people who can. But it's also important to have the right balance of how to use and when to use AI. And I think it's also important to, so when you're using AI platforms or tech sort of tools, it's about how it's being sort of instructed or being programmed and how we use it. Because I think we, as a human, the human intelligence need to sort of determine the result of that platform. So we will still be there. we will still be part of the solution for sure.
Next. That's good, Orsa. That's very reassuring to hear that more positive, optimistic view. And Orsa, we're both working remote today. I'm in the shed at the bottom of my garden. Some people call it a garden room, but it's definitely with windows, and I could be bloody cold. I've been lucky to lead a remote first company since 2015 and work remotely. I think, it's coming up to maybe 14 years now where I've been working in some remote type of way. But I suppose my question for you is, Orsa, what's your take on remote work? Do you think it's the best thing ever, or do you think it can be damaging for organizations, or is there somewhere in between?
I do enjoy being part of a sort of remote first company. I really do think it creates good sort of work-life balance, but also balance within the work, how we sort of manage our efficiency within our role. But you can't sort of you can't miss out on meeting your team and being part of meeting clients and partners, and that's really sort of, I need that energy. I need to see people. But when I do sort of work, I don't mind being sort of remote. I think it's quite good, and it makes it. Sometimes in some days it makes sort of everything sort of work and private life sort of, it will become a good mix of things. But I think it's definitely most positive to work remote for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Where I might be concerned might be the wrong word, but maybe for the younger people, or so, of course, we both consider ourselves so young, but I mean the really young people.
Or you're getting started.
Exactly. That are just getting started. That are just getting started in their careers. You know, people in their late teens, early 20s, mid 20s. I'm just wondering about the potential negative impact of working in this fully remote environment. You know, what's your take on that? Is there maybe a better way to do it for the younger people?
Good question. I think it's sort of a mixture of both sort of meeting up, working together, have that teamwork, have a strategy of when we do that kind of collaboration together, and how we do it sort of most efficiently and to create the best result. But I don't think it is some sort of negative of being a remote worker, even though you just started your career. But I think it's necessary to have a good mix when you sort of in beginning of your career. I really do.
I think that's really fair comment, Orsa. So, Orsa, I'm going to ask you a question we ask all of our guests on the show, and the question is as follows: what, if any, is your prediction or predictions for the future of work?
I'm hoping that we sort of widen our views on how to choose the talent and for us to be, and also for the talent to choose us. I think we need to be quite wide in diversity of how we see skills, how we see talent, how we see experience and knowledge. And the wider we sort of look at that, the more we win, the more knowledge we get from different views, from different backgrounds. And I think we really need that diversity to make sure that we on top of things and create the innovation that we need, or the growth that we're looking for, or solving problems, or whatever sort of the business we're doing. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I love that diversity piece. Well, Orsa, thanks very much for joining us today on the show. It's great working with you, but it's great delving into these topics together.
Yes, thanks for good conversation. Good.
Yeah, it's been great. So, Orsa, just for the benefit of our audience, how can they reach out to you and find out more about what you do and how you might be able to help them?
Yeah, well, the easiest, of course, at LinkedIn, and just send me a message, and I'll be right back. That's probably the easiest way.
Love it. I love it. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today. Really great to see you. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks in London. We're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of success.
Yes, for sure. We will.
Wishing you the best here. So thanks, Orsa.
Thank you for listening to the Open Talent Report with Connor Heaney. If you found this podcast informative and engaging, make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, and follow us on all your favorite streaming platforms.